Let's look at evaluating expressions now. So when the numeric values of an expression, like area equals length times width, are unknown, we'll use variables to represent the unknown values. For example, as I just mentioned, if we have area, our area formula is length times width. That's the equation for the area of a rectangular region having length L and width W. Then if at some point we determine the exact values of those unknown variables, we can then substitute them back into the equation to evaluate them. For example, if W equals 3 and L equals 5, we can substitute them back in for L and W, and we get our area is 5 times 3, or 15. So that's called evaluating an expression, when you have some formula with unknown variables in it, and then you find out what the variables are, and you substitute them back in. For example, if we have this expression, x plus y squared, and we know that x is 5 and y is 1/2, we can evaluate it. So we just plug 5 in for x, 1/2 in for y, and we get that this is equal to, which we can then simplify as, now finding a common denominator here, 1/2 is, or 5 is the same as 10/2, so this will be so 11/2 squared, and that is equal to 121/4. And if you wanted to evaluate that on a calculator, you could easily do that. All right, so 30.25. Also remember, if you evaluate 1/2 squared, you have to use the parentheses like that. So you could also evaluate it as, and there you go, 32.25. Another example here. If you're given this expression, a squared plus b squared divided by c squared, and we know that a is 3/2, b is 2, and c is 4, we can just substitute them in and obtain the value of our expression for those particular variable values. And then we just have to simplify that, so 3/2 squared is going to be 3 squared divided by 2 squared, so that's going to be 9/4. And 4 squared is 16. And then moving over here, simplifying that, 4 is going to be 16/4, 9/4 plus 16/4, finding a common denominator. And so then we're looking at 25. And then we can move the 16 up, thinking of this as being 16/1. Remember how we divide fractions, just flip this up and write this as 25/4 times 1/16. And then that is 25 divided by 4 times 16 is going to be 64. And that's our simplified answer, 25/64. Just remember how you divide fractions over here. You have to think of that 16 in the denominator as 16 divided by 1, and then flip that up and multiply, like right here. Of course, you could evaluate it on your calculator. Just typing this expression right here in. Notice how I use parentheses. and just check 25 over 64, check that that's the same. And yes, it is. Just notice one thing. When I typed divide by, I used parentheses around the 4 hat 2. Technically, you don't need those because the hat operator is evaluated before the division operator, but it's okay to put parentheses if you're not sure about that. In other words, when I did this, I actually put parentheses around the denominator like that, although those weren't really needed because the exponents are performed before the division here, but it's okay to put them in. Let's take a look at this example. The volume of a box is given by length times width times height. That's our volume formula for a box, where L equals length, W equals width, H equals height, so LWH. Given a box with dimensions length is 5, width is 2 inches, height is 12 inches, find the volume of the box. Well, you just have to substitute those values in for L, W, and H. So our volume is going to be 5 times 2 times 12. And the units would actually be, each one has units of inches, so this would actually be cubic inches, or inches cubed, we would write like that. And 7 times 12 is going to be 84. And there you go. So that's all you have to do to evaluate an expression. You just have to substitute the numbers in for any variables that are appearing in the expression.